How's it going, guys and gals? Russell is back. This time we're going to be doing kind of like a retrospective on God of War 2018. I just kind of wanted to discuss, like the way that I perceived the game, the effect that that it had on me. So, starting off, we were coming straight from God of War 3, from a lore perspective. Spoilers, by the way, in case anyone hasn't played any of these games or are still planning to, any of the sorts. The post-credit scene, God of War 3, Greece, everything in the Greek world destroyed. Kratos essentially killed every major god. Well, every major god. And he ended up trying to kill himself. Obviously, we know he didn't succeed because in the post-credit scene, we see the trail of blood. He just climbed off the edge. And that's, that's what led us to 2018. Santa Monica Studios released a monumental gaming experience. This, that installment marked a significant departure from its predecessors. It introduced players to a more mature, a more like emotional, resonant Kratos. It gave us a fresh setting and definitely like more of a compelling narrative as compared to its predecessors. So let's talk about the key aspects that made it stand out. Starting off with the narrative, I like to say that it went through, a narrative puberty, if that makes any sense. Like God of War 1, 2, 3, Chains of Olympus, Ghost of Sparta, Ascension. You're a rowdy young kid. That's how I was. At least, you're full of energy, you might be ready to blow up at any moment just cause, whether it's, happiness, sadness, anger, anything, you're living life out of emotion. You're not so much living life out of, genuinely processing what you're doing, and, with that, it shifted, from a more, like a vengeful, a more, hatred-fueled Kratos, to a more nuanced and relatable character. The story centered, Kratos, obviously, and his son, Atreus, whose mother had recently passed away, and it was her dying wish, that they spread her ashes together from the highest peak in all the 9 realms. One thing did lead to another, obviously, as any story goes, and, we got one hell of an adventure out of it. The father-son dynamic adds, it definitely added more depth and emotion. They explored themes of redemption, the complexities of parenthood, loss. It was impactful, and it was impactful for a lot of people. Moving on was the single continuous shot approach that they decided to make with the game. Something similar, it's been done in films too. It's, great films like 1917 have utilized the same kind of shooting methods. And from a narrative standpoint, it's beautiful. It's great. Especially, 2018, the PS4 had released, they wanted to utilize, every bit of that they could. And that was definitely a technical achievement on their end. Because up until that point, it wasn't very, like, mainstream for a lot of games to have, like, one continuous shot. I feel like that game really, like, popularized it. It really, it had the same effect, that, like, movies like Into the Spider-Verse had, where, like, this group of people does it right, all of a sudden, all these other people are like, hey, we should try to do this too. And, like I was saying before, it was newer at the time. They utilized the PlayStation 4's hardware, and they did everything they could to utilize that, to elevate the storytelling. And, that was achievable because it was like they didn't break any connections, it was maintaining its flow. You wouldn't have to sit there and wait for some awkward pause to happen, right before a cutscene starts. Obviously, the loading times, not a single loading time. The most recent videos that I posted for the whole playthrough, they were all filmed on my PS5, obviously, but even initially when I played the game on my PlayStation 4, when it first came out, I had little to no load times. Now the combat overhaul, it went through a substantial change. It really did. The previous titles had the whole fixed camera approach, which was more, I want to say it was more regular at the time that, the series was still at its beginning, because, we were still on the PlayStation 2. You had, like, a lot of games, especially hack and slash games, action adventure games, they were fixed camera. They were, it made it easier for the hardware to process the environment, because, you have the camera somewhere up in the corner. Great. The console is only, they're only making that one room for the environment, but having, especially for, like, an action adventure game like God of War is, coming from a hack and slash perspective, having that camera over your shoulder definitely added, it added more depth. It added a feeling of intimacy when it comes to combat, because you're thrust into it. You're not so much like, the camera's not way far behind you, you can't see everything around you. You can only really perceive everything that's in front of you, which adds, it adds more of a requirement for strategy, especially when you get to the harder difficulties where you actually have to worry about the damage that you're taking. Atreus left a subtle but impactful mark on the way you engage in fights as well. In the previous games, you were alone. Aside from situations like in Ghost of Sparta, where Kratos' brother Deimos fights by your side temporarily, Atreus is also, he's never a hindrance. A lesson, that's definitely a lesson that a lot of companies, in the gaming industry have learned, especially after seeing the frustrations exhibited towards characters, like Ashley Graham or Sheva Alomar from the Resident Evil series, who they gave fans a lot of headache. In Resident Evil 4, Ashley, she couldn't defend herself. And she had a whole health bar you had to worry about. It was a lot. And then Resident Evil 5, where Sheva could defend herself, but the AI wasn't really all that smart. Atreus, on the other hand, he's agile, he's quick. The things he can do in-game are very true to his character, especially from a narrative standpoint. He's a child, he's young. Of course, he's going to be able to weave in and out of enemies. He's going to be harder to grab. That doesn't mean he's impossible to grab, but he's capable of holding his own, and it's plausible that he's able to hold his own. His father is the Ghost of Sparta. They make it very well known that up until that point, Atreus had already had a lot of good training. Obviously, he's not fully trained, but he's also not brand new. He's not just some kid that was pushed into this situation just for narrative's sake. Another thing that God of War also expanded upon was its gameplay beyond, the whole linear hack and slash type of sequences. The biggest incorporation of that change is the open world. The interconnected realms and, the open world structure, it gave players a sense of freedom. It gave the players the feeling of, hey, like we don't just have one world for you to explore, but there's multiple worlds that are, narratively speaking, stacked on top of each other, like just separate planes of existence. And that, when you tie things like that into the lore, it gives you, you get more incentive to do exploring. You get more incentive to even complete side quests, find extra pieces of gear, because a lot of times you find a piece of broken armor, you're gonna have dialogue attached to it, whether it's just, oh, you found this broken piece of armor, let me run it back to the dwarves and see what they have to think about it. And then they'll tell you about, oh, this belonged to Ivaldi, this belonged to so-and-so, and this, that, and the third. Now we're going to move on to the visually stunning world design. The game's visual presentation is absolutely nothing short of breathtaking. From the intricate details of every character model, to the vast landscapes, it set a newer standard, a more modernized standard when it came to graphical fidelity. Midgard, although technically being on Earth, still feels fictional, but true to life. Clearly it has magical influence, but it still feels like a recognizable Earth. The other realms added a whole new depth, though. With each, new area you discovered, it was always as if you could genuinely feel the life within, no matter how populated the area was, either by enemy NPCs or friendly NPCs, dialogue-driven NPCs, anything. You can start with Alfheim. When you first step through those doors of Tyr's temple, the first thing that you're greeted to is the botanical ecosystem. You know, you have all these bright and vibrant trees, you know, pushed right up against the door before Freya waves her hand and moves them away. There's a lot to there's a lot of colors to work with. There's definitely a lot. And you know, the vibrance of those plants, it was beautiful. It was beautiful, especially when contrasted with the seemingly forever night sky that the realm had, despite, you know, the light of Alfheim being far back into the map. The remainder of the sky looked like it was, you know, in a perpetual night cycle. Helheim, you know, being a realm of ice and despair, the tone was really set when crossing the bridge farther beyond Tyr's Temple. You know, you reach that first gate to when you can start really pushing in, and you know, you see all the souls. They're visibly uncomfortable. You know, they're like holding their arms because it's cold. You got the music in the background, that ominous green sky. It gives you a sense of mystery, but it's like an uncomfortable mystery. You don't know what's gonna happen. You know, you hear a realm like Helheim, it's gonna sound daunting. But like a realm of ice isn't exactly what you'd think of first. Niflheim, you know, that was the realm of mist, the home of Ivaldi's workshop. It was an interesting gauntlet to go back to over and over and over again. It was, it's one of the most like consistent things that I like to come back to after a new playthrough, you know, because it changes every single time. You know, because you leave and you come back, and you can leave and you come back, and it's not going to be the same. It's not. The only thing that remains consistent is you have the workshop in the middle where you can, you know, you can go to seal up the realm tears and all that. And the Valkyrie in Niflheim always spawns at the far left. So you take a left, keep going that way. The Valkyrie's always going to spawn that direction. Those are the only constants in Niflheim. You know, so you're kind of greeted with that, okay, like, what am I going to be dealing with this time? And your little, like, life force bar at the top, because the mist is poisonous. You know, it's going to reinforce the feelings of, like, okay, like, I don't know everything that's in this realm, and it seems like the realm is telling me I'm not supposed to be here, because, you know, not only is just being here killing me slowly, but, you know, they're pushing all of these enemies my way that obviously, you know, you're gonna have to fight them regardless, but you're gonna want to do so more quickly than, you know, you would somewhere in like Midgard, Alfheim, Helheim, because you just have that inevitable timer at the top. Muspelheim, while not offering much outside of the challenges, was essentially just as it is in the Old Norse religions. It's a realm of fire and lava. It's a linear, so there's not much exploring to do, but the way you traverse the mountain to reach the final challenge gives you time to really appreciate the depth of how the colors are used in the realm. The way, you know, you look at the sky, it's like a deep brown. Certain areas gives it a gray. You know, you get one of the giants' murals to look at while you're there, which holds it holds some lore relevance. But as far as, you know, like a fiery landscape goes, you know, it's desolate. It gives you the feeling of like, yeah, like Mustafar from Star Wars, you know, like you're in a land of volcanoes. And it just feels dreadful. And the musical score is beautiful. The sound design as well, beautiful. Bear McCreary composed the score for God of War, and it complements the narrative and the gameplay seamlessly, even with just the character themes. Like the contrast between the sternness of Kratos' theme and the soothing nature of Faye's. Like, you as the player obviously know that Kratos is the one living the story, but like the duality of the two, you know that Kratos isn't the only one who would tell the story. There's another half, kind of like a yin-yang type of thing, and that's obviously, what transforms into Atreus, who, has that recurring theme throughout the game of like, okay, like I'm torn between the existence of two different things. Am I a human boy or am I a god? So, Bear's balance between even those character themes is it's genius. It is absolutely genius. The music enhances, emotional beats, it intensifies combat, and it really underscores the grandeur of the Norse religion. Especially with artists like Eivor at his fingertips. Her voice is beautiful, and her portrayal as, Faye in the songs that she sings is magnificent. McCreary did confirm that he didn't want, some run-of-the-mill choir to do his music. So he decided to have a visit with the Icelandic choir, as, they were the most efficient at speaking the ancient language that was befitting the lore the most. And, combining that, all those intricacies that he put in with the sound design, it adds, a whole new layer of immersion. It adds a whole new field of emotions to be felt. God of War 2018 stands as a testament to the potential, for reinvention within gaming franchises. Santa Monica Studios not only revitalized the God of War series, but it also set a new standard. By embracing, the more mature narrative, especially, a lot of the people that have played the original games played it when they were younger. Obviously, that doesn't mean that applies to the entire fan base, but it applies to a good portion, and they gave it enough time to where when the game can mature with the audience, it mirrors a lot of, like, not only just emotional bonds because of the narrative, but emotional bonds because of the meaning and the depth behind the characters, behind the music, behind, the experiences that are had with the game. You get a lot of people who might have been teenagers playing the originals, and now they're on their firstborn. They've already, mid-30s, early 40s, late 20s playing God of War 2018, and, they feel more fulfilled because, hey, like, this, I enjoyed the last ones because, it was just mindless combat, but now I can really appreciate, the amount of effort that it takes to move from mindlessness to, okay, there's a lot of weight that comes with you know, all that mindlessness, the same way that you'd perceive growing up. That's why I like to refer to it as a narrative puberty. It definitely, the game cements itself as, you know, a modern classic. And it goes to show why, no matter how perfect you think a formula is, you know, there's still a very large importance that comes with things such as innovation, storytelling, and emotional resonance. You know, especially when it comes to creating those memorable gaming experiences for both consumers and the team involved in the game. But anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you really liked it. I know I'm not the best at talking over video and such. I fidgeted a lot. It's 3:57 for me right now. I got off work like 3 hours ago, so bear with me. If you like this video, if you liked any bit of the God of War 2018 playthrough that I did, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. I'm surely going to get in the habit of posting more, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.